Soldiers on criminal charges detained at military cell. The handover and takeover of the Tourism Ministry. And Nadzab Airport to see major transformation.
This is National EMTV News with Lorraine Genia.
Hello and welcome to Monday's news. National Court Judge Panwal Mogish has questioned why the 6 PNGDF soldiers charged for murder were detained at the Murray Barracks military cell instead of the Bomana prison. Judge Mogish raised this concern after hearing in court that the 6 men were in military police custody since their rearrest on the 16th of March. This case is in relation to the death of a student in Port Moresby last August.
The 6 soldiers are Francis Nasi, Jude Nidun, David Taipe, Kenneth Yangan, Tobias Samson, Gregory Tuaki, and Alvin Matiabe. They were rearrested on March 16 after the Waigani Committal Court struck out their case due to police not compiling court documents on time. This morning, their lawyer told the court that all 6 were attending a committal hearing at the Bomana District Court and could not be present for their bail submissions. The court held that their detention at the military cells was an administrative decision. However, Judge Mogi said all persons charged under the law must be kept at the Bomana prison and police cannot make internal arrangements regardless of the situation. It is understood the 6 accused cannot be detained at the Boroko police station holding cells because the cells are currently under renovation. Because of the seriousness of their case, they were refused police bail. They will be seeking bail from the Waigani National Court next Monday. Takla Gunga, National EMTV News.
A senior judge of the National and Supreme Courts was arrested this morning by police. Justice Sir Bernard Sakura was charged for 1 count of judicial corruption. According to NCD and Central Divisional Commander Sylvester Clout, he allegedly received 100,000 kina from lawyer Paul Paraka through a company PKP Nominees Limited in 2009. He is out on a 1,000 kina police bail. Justice Sir Bernard Sakura was reappointed last year for another 3-year term. Following his swearing in on Friday as the new Minister for Tourism, Arts and Culture, Tobias Kulang today called on employees and every stakeholder in the industry to lift their game. He will immediately focus on ensuring the institutions under the ministry are realigned. Mr. Kulang acknowledged the former Minister for Tourism, Justin Chachenko, in initiating some major structural changes to the National Cultural Commission and National Museum during his short term.
An official handover ceremony of the Ministry of Tourism, Art and Culture was observed in the presence of stakeholders and members of the 4 sub-institutions under the ministry. Former Minister for Tourism Justin Chachenko, when handing over the reins to the first-time minister, said Mr. Kulang was capable of taking tourism to the next level.
He has a lot of experience in tourism, especially in his own district, with one of the highest mountains, Mount Wilhelm, that I've been on. It's a beautiful place in the world. He is developing that tourism industry there for the benefit of his people in his district. And with whatever funds he's using for his DSIP, and that he's doing a fabulous job. So he's not new to tourism when it comes to developing it in our country.
Among the focus areas Mr. Kulang will be looking at includes customer focus and accessibility, marketing and financial sustainability, intensifying marketing and product development, and introducing an award system as an incentive for those making a genuine effort in the industry. Mr. Kulang said tourism has huge potential, but the industry was letting the country down.
In terms of TPA, I think you've failed terribly in your mandate to promote the country. When 2015 Pacific Game was there, you lost a very good opportunity to market this country. Right.
He declared a new day for tourism in Papua New Guinea and called on all employees and stakeholders in the industry to lift their game.
The nation needs better. Okay, TPA play a very critical role in changing the negative image about this country.
Delhi Waigeno, National EMTV News.
A combined manhunt operation comprising locals, police and correctional service staff in Manus has resulted in the recapture of Joshua Kolivia. Joshua Kolivia has since become the most wanted man on Manus Island after he escaped from the Manus CS prison late last month. He was found guilty by the National Court in Manus for killing Reza Barati, an Irian refugee, during a violent riot at the Regional Processing Centre in February 2014. He was held in police custody awaiting his sentencing when he escaped. Manus Acting Provincial Police Commander Senior Inspector David Yapu said the special operation team was tipped off by locals that led to the rearrest of Kolivia. He expressed satisfaction over the combined efforts of all parties during the manhunt. Joshua Kolivia appeared in court earlier today where he received his jail sentence. The area around Lays Nadzab Airport will be transformed into a growth centre 42 kilometres outside of the city. Development should start once a Japanese government-funded master plan is completed and the national government starts funding the redevelopment of the airport. Civil Aviation Minister Davis Stevens says the country's second-largest airport has to become a place for international travellers to stop over and spend money in Papua New Guinea. Bethany Harriman with this report.
The last time Nadzab Airport ever saw change was after 1982 when the terminal got burnt down. Since then, apart from the one-off renovations, it has remained the same. Nadzab's infrastructure hasn't kept up with the world, and so Nadzab hasn't had a commercial international flight land since the early 1960s, when it was a military base. Today, the national government has plans to use a Japanese government-funded master plan created by JICA to revamp the historical airport into a hub fit for international travelers.
We are able now to do the pre-feasibility studies, and the planning process is underway. I'm happy to say that the Prime Minister has taken the lead personally to ensure that the funding is assured. So Nadzab is definitely going to come on stream. As to the exact dates, we will announce them as we come.
Other countries in the Asia-Pacific region like Singapore make a significant amount of revenue from transiting passengers.
The growth center will happen here at Nadzab. It's an economic leap aimed at developing infrastructure and make use of available land. It's a growth center that will be similar to that developed at the University of Technology by its administration at Lays East Tarakat campus. But the reason why it's happening here at Nadzab is to attract international travelers on commercial airlines to come into our economy and spend money. There is going to be 3 other growth centers. It's being planned by the JICA team.
Nadzab Airport and all its supporting infrastructure in the tourism industry were never given the attention they needed to become world-class facilities to attract the sort of revenue enjoyed by other economies in the region.
As you know, that our country is blessed to be positioned in the middle of the universe. There is enough traffic above us, which I believe is a potential that in aviation sector we can look at, and Nadzab offers the best opportunity.
Over the last 40 years, there has been wastage of funds, corruption and instability in the government, and it has become an obstacle. Bethany Harriman, National EMTV News, Lay.
National EMTV News continues after the break. Don't go away. Welcome back. You're watching Monday's news. The Prime Minister's lawyer, Tiffany Twyvie, was picked up by members of the fraud squad for questioning this afternoon, shortly after returning to the country from a trip. Twyvie was questioned in relation to many legal applications made to prevent the arrest warrant for the Prime Minister. Lays Law and Order Committee will be conducting peace talks that will be conducted at IHE LLG's Busu compound area, following a clash last week between 2 neighbouring communities living at the Busu compound. Law and Order Chairman Sam Oyaya says the fight resulted from an argument over an alleged sorcery killing. 77 houses were torched, displacing families and households. Among the displaced were 27 public servants employed by the Morbe provincial government. The recent El Niño-induced dry spell in the country put a spotlight on institutions' ability to assist in times of crisis. While the government continues to boast about its assistance efforts in the worst affected areas, others were left to find their own solutions. One such place was the Karawagi Rural Health Centre in the Chimbu province.
The upgrade of the water supply for the Karawagi Health Centre came as a drought response by an NGO called Oxfam International. The assistance was in response to a request by a partner of Oxfam called the Coop Women for Peace and the District Health Extension Officer.
During the very long dry El Niño time, I think last year it coming up long January, me looking long ausik. Tupla mama all been given birth. Now all look at wara because all get a tongue long ausik me dry. So all him been using this like drip, yeah, drip. All was him all this lana. Then me look him, why ya? Bell blow me cry.
Manager for Oxfam's Water Sanitation and Hygiene Program, John Nokwe, said the water supply system was proposed by the Coop Women for Peace. He said that when prioritizing its programs, Oxfam also looks at the government's sectoral plans as well as ward development plans. He said water, sanitation and hygiene was vital, especially for the country's rural majority.
With that 87% of the population living in the rural communities, only 33% have access to water supply. Only 19% have access to sanitation. So where do the rest of the population go to get their water?
Oxfam's drought response coordinator, Clive Phillips, explained the health centre's water situation during the prolonged drought season.
So ordinarily the water system in the health centre is a rainwater catchment system. The problem last year was when it didn't rain for a prolonged period, they ran out of water. And what we've basically done is install a system that connects the storage system that was existing in the health centre to a local spring. And we've installed a pump that allows the water to be pumped from that spring into the health centre, and we've installed a water filter system.
Funded by New Zealand's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, the water supply project was finally launched on Friday. This water supply project will benefit about 30,000 people that use the Karawagi District Health Centre. Deli Waigeno, National, EMTV News, Karawagi.
One of Papua New Guinea's largest cocoa exporters, AGMAC, has announced the return of the cocoa industry in East New Britain province. This comes after a combination of the cocoa pod borer disease and the El Niño effects hit the cocoa industry, slashing its production amount significantly. To mark its comeback, AGMAC will export 32 bags of high-grade cocoa beans to an Australian chocolate factory in Adelaide, Australia tomorrow via an Air New Guinea commercial flight. Edwin Fidelis reports from Kokopo.
These are the 32 bags of high-grade Tokiala cocoa beans that will be exported tomorrow via an Air New Guinea flight to Port Moresby, then to Adelaide on Wednesday. Their net weight 2 tons. But that's not all. 240 similar bags will be ferried by ship later on this month to the same chocolate factory in Adelaide. AGMAC's agriculture production manager, Graham McNally, says this is to maintain PNG's relationship with international cocoa buyers who continue to choose cocoa from Papua New Guinea apart from other cocoa producing countries. And that is a step that AGMAC tries to maintain.
One of our buyers in Australia urgently require some top quality cocoa beans from our Tokiala plantation brand, which we will be air freighting. We are doing this to make sure that their manufacturing is not going to fall behind.
It marks the return of the cocoa industry after it fell victim to a combination of the cocoa pod borer disease and El Niño effects last year.
This has led to us being behind with some of our supply contracts. We've got, for the first 3 months of this year, where production is seriously down, more than 50% down on the first 3 months of the year last year. which has put us behind a bit with our supply.
While the cocoa exports looks good for AgMac, the trickle-down effects to small-scale cocoa growers will be remarkable.
It is their main cash crop here in East New Britain, and most are going back into their plantations. And lately we are seeing a lot of wet beans that are being purchased and are being dried in our fermentary at the back here.
The cocoa pod disease is now a thing of the past, and El Nino effects will soon be over. The cocoa price for a cocoa bag is 510 kina. Good cocoa beans means good cocoa price. This isn't the first time that AgMac has exported on a large scale, and it won't be the last. The glory days of the cocoa industry returning for the province slowly but surely. Edwin Fidelis, National EMTV News, Kokopo.
Morbe's Provincial Education Advisor Keith Jiram says the Education Office will be issuing a standard policy in all schools within Morbe in the hope of reducing the number of school fights. The penalties are yet to be designed but will include common elements of rules used by schools in the province. This follows 3 school fights last week at Malahang Vocational School, Markham Valley and Bugandi Secondary School. And now looking at our finance news, the Kina opened unchanged at $0.3205 US in the interbank markets. At Bank South Pacific, your Kina was buying $0.3130 US, $0.4108 Australian dollars, $0.2713 euro and 33.62 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, gold, coffee, cocoa and copra closed the day higher. Palm oil closed unchanged, crude oil closed higher, while copper closed the day lower. And on the stock market, the Dow Jones closed at 35.0 points higher, the ASX closed at 4.42 points lower, and the All Ordinaries closed at 3.20 points lower. National EMTV News continues after the break with stories making headlines overseas. Stay with us. Welcome back to the news. Lebanese authorities are expected to decide soon on whether a 4-member Australian film crew will face charges in connection with a plot to recover 2 children in a child custody dispute, Australia's Foreign Minister said this weekend. Lebanese police detained the 4 Australians and accused them of being involved in the kidnapping of the 2 children from their Lebanese father on behalf of their Australian mother.
Spending 5 nights behind bars so far since their detainment, the crew is expected to appear before a judge tonight. Australian authorities working to aid the release of the 4 fear they could be stranded in the country for weeks.
I spoke with our ambassador, Glenn Miles, who is based in Beirut overnight. We had a very detailed discussion about the consular assistance that the Australian government is providing to the 60 Minutes crew and to the mother. There is a compassionate element to this case because of course it involves children. We are providing as much support as we can, meeting with officials within the Lebanese government and doing what we can to ascertain what is proposed in relation to the crew and the alleged involvement of the crew in this case. At this stage we understand that they're still being held in detention and that the question of charges is an issue that will be determined shortly.
The 4 crew members, including 9 Network reporter Tara Brown, were making a film about the mother's efforts to recover her children for the Australian current affairs show 60 Minutes.
We're talking with the lawyers that have been engaged by Channel 9 for the crew. We're talking with the husband's lawyers. We're talking with the mother's lawyers. So Australia is very actively involved in trying to get a solution to this case. We have been informed that the Lebanese authorities view this case very seriously, and I cannot understate the seriousness with which the Lebanese authorities are viewing the case, but we're doing all we can to maintain contact with all of the parties involved, including their lawyers who've been engaged by the father, by the mother and by the 60 Minutes crew, and also by the other firm that was involved in this matter.
The Australian mother is also in detention in Lebanon, media has reported. Lebanese Interior Minister Nohad Magnouk was quoted last week as saying the crew were involved in abducting the 2 children and detained in respect of their participation in the kidnapping operation. CCTV footage broadcast on Lebanese TV had appeared to show the two children, who the father said were aged 5 and 3, being bundled into a car by several attackers on a busy street in southern Beirut. The children's grandmother told media she had been hit on the head with a pistol during the abduction. Lebanese media reported that Brisbane woman Sally Faulkner had been detained and her children returned to their father. Family and friends of the 4 Australians now fear the crew may be subjected to a lengthy wait in Lebanon prison cells while sorting what they say was a recovery operation as opposed to kidnapping, according to the Lebanese authorities. Vanessa Knight, EMTV World News.
Over in India, in a tragic twist of events, a fireworks explosion killed approximately 100 people and injured over 350 in a temple fire that followed. The fire started at 3 a.m. local time when at least 15,000 people gathered to celebrate an annual festival of the temple's fire.
Agitated locals who were interviewed in the aftermath of the fire told CCTV that the fireworks were acquired without the security department's approval, nor were there any firm restrictions on its use. The fireworks had been kept in a shed with no consideration for the people's safety or its isolation. The blaze was said to have started when a cracker fell on the shed, resulting in a series of explosions and a massive casualty count. Speaking at a state hospital in the capital, India's Prime Minister said his government was ready to provide necessary assistance.
I have told the Kerala Chief Minister that the federal government will make immediate arrangements if critically injured patients need to be shifted to Mumbai, Delhi or somewhere else. The Indian government is with Kerala and the families of victims in his hour of crisis. It is difficult to explain how the accident happened. People as far away as 200 meters were injured. Doctors have told me that in some cases bodies and heads were blown apart due to the explosion. I can understand how severe the scale of destruction is.
Meanwhile, doctors on leave were ordered to cancel and to attend to their duties immediately. Officials advised that due to the fragile state of some of the survivors, the death toll was expected to rise. Melissa Goviro, EMTV World News.
Investigators have released startling details about last month's terror attacks in Brussels. They now say the attackers originally intended to hit Paris, but changed plans when they thought police were moving in. Belgian prosecutors say they have one of the Brussels terrorists in custody. He has confessed to being the man seen in the hat. CNN has retraced his steps leading up to the attack and his arrest.
Mohamed Abrini has been one of the most wanted men in Europe ever since the coordinated attacks in Paris in November. But it's in this Schaerbeek apartment where authorities first learned of Abrini's possible involvement in the Brussels attacks as well. This is where the attackers made their bombs and where police say they found Abrini's DNA. This is where a taxi driver picked up 3 men on the morning of March 22nd and drove them to the airport. Due to increased security, this is as close as we're allowed to film at Brussels Airport, but it's in the departure terminal that cameras first capture the man in the hat. Mohamed Abrini has told police that it was him pushing a trolley alongside suicide bombers Najim Lashrawi and Ibrahim El-Bakraoui. But before the blast, he leaves the terminal and is captured again on CCTV walking past the Sheraton Hotel. He then leaves the airport via the Avis car park, and he does so on foot. The next image is captured almost an hour later here in Zaventem, 3 kilometres away from the airport. And he's seen wearing just a light-coloured shirt as he walks right by here. Abrini has told police that he dumped his distinctive white jacket in a bin at some point during this leg of the journey. Another 50 minutes later, he's seen walking across this pedestrian crossing at the Mazer Junction in Schaerbeek. He's made pretty quick time during this 6-kilometre leg of the journey, during which Khalid El-Bakraoui has detonated his bomb at the Malbec metro station. Just 8 minutes later, he arrives here, just over a kilometre away from the scene of the metro blast. He was right here 40 minutes after that attack, when emergency services would have been fighting to save people's lives. It's the last image of the day that is captured of him on CCTV. After that, he disappears. It would be 17 days before authorities catch their man in Anderlecht. Police pouncing on Abrini as he walked by here in plain sight. It's just a short distance from Molenbeek, where he and many of the other young men implicated in the Brussels and Paris attacks grew up.
Taliban insurgents are making bold advances, and part of the reason the Afghan government seems to be losing ground is because of soldiers who defect from the Afghan army to join the Taliban.
You know a war's going badly when your enemy's right in front of you. This white flag is the Taliban's. They really are that close to these Afghans, defending one of the last government holdouts in Helmand province. It used to be NATO that shot from these positions near the vulnerable city of Lashkar. Hundreds of Americans and Britons died for Helmand, many in the town of Sangin, where these pictures show the Afghan army recently in heavy clashes. But now Afghanistan is, quite quickly, watching Helmand fall. The Taliban are winning partly because of men like these. This is a rare window into the Afghan government's worst nightmare. Soldiers from the Afghan army, whom America spent billions training, who say they've defected and joined the Taliban. They're edgy, never dreamed they'd change sides.
I did 18 months of army training and took an oath to serve this country. But the situation changed. The army let us down. So we had to come to the Taliban, who treat us like guests.
They carry their old uniforms, IDs and bank cards used to get their old army wages. They fought in violent Sangin, where these pictures were more recently filmed, yet now both use their training and experience to train the Taliban.
I decided to leave the army when my dead and injured comrades lay in our base, but nobody took them to the hospital. My army training is very useful now, as I am now training Taliban fighters with the same knowledge.
Men who've seen the tide turn and voted with their feet.
Helmand's the indisputable heartland of the south that NATO fought so hard to push the Taliban back in. And the fact that here in Kabul, you can talk to many officials who say its capital, Lashkar, could fall at any day, really gives you a sense of how much on the offensive the Taliban are and what could happen in the summer fighting season ahead.
This is the centre of Lashkar, the key town on the Taliban sites. Tense, yet teeming. Some visit briefly from areas the Taliban now control.
It's a bit too soon to say whether people are happy with the Taliban in Musa Qala. The bazaar is now full of people, while it used to be empty. That was because the security was bad, and some people avoided the government's forces.
Others fled to its outskirts from the fighting in flashpoints like Sangin.
My worst memory from Sangin is how a wedding party was hit by a mortar, killing a large number of women and children.
The police left after the fighting intensified and told me to move to a vacant corner of the village, but the bullets and rockets followed, killing 10 people, so I fled here.
To the U.S. elections now, Democratic presidential candidates Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton are laying claim to New York, but some local voters say neither candidates are addressing their real concerns.
Bernie, with his undeniable Brooklyn accent,
I was born here in New York City.
And Hillary, the former New York senator, parking her campaign headquarters here.
So I am thrilled to have a chance to be here in Brooklyn,
battling it out over who has stronger New York ties.
Born in Illinois, that's not a crime.
I love New York.
But a true Brooklynite.
Good morning, how are you?
Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams says neither of the candidates are in touch with real issues that some New Yorkers face.
There's a beautiful New York on Park Avenue, and then there's a troubled New York on Park Place in Brooklyn. So let's represent both parts of New York.
A lifelong Democrat, Adams says he hasn't endorsed either candidate and won't be attending the debate on Thursday, being held in his borough at the Brooklyn Navy Yard.
Why are we focusing on places that is a success story? Why not go to the heart of areas that needs to be successful, Brownsville is that.
Brownsville is one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in New York City. The crime rate is above 40%. More than a third of the population lives in poverty. It has the highest concentration of public housing in the city, a breeding ground for gang violence. It's here we met Adams, in front of an elementary school where a mother of 12 was shot and killed, caught in the crossfire of gang warfare.
She covered the body of her children, and she was shot and killed. And it's really representative of the Brownsvilles across America.
His message is resonating with the people here. Gene Barkley says he was once into drugs and a life on the street in Brownsville. Life is hard here, and he wants the candidates to see that.
If the candidates were to come to Brownsville, what would you want them to hear from the people who live here?
To see if they can stop the shooting and the crimes, number one. If that was stopped, a whole lot of other things would stop.
With the April 19th primary approaching, Clinton and Sanders have been crisscrossing the city all weekend, vying for the state's 291 Democratic delegates. Clinton stopping at Brooklyn landmarks like the famed Junior's Diner, a favorite on the campaign trail. Sanders holding a rally in front of his childhood home, trying to close the gap.
You don't think they're trying hard enough here?
No, they're not. No, they're not. I know they're going to the boardwalk. They're walking through Harlem. They're sitting in the black church. Those are traditional things. They cannot be afraid to come to Brownsville, sit down in a public housing, have a town hall right here, have a debate right here. That's the right statement.
Chuka Sports is up next with news on the PNG swim team abroad. Stay with us for the details. PNG will become the first Oceania nation, aside from New Zealand, to host a FIFA Women's Tournament. Before then, however, there will be another first as one of the region's fastest growing football nations welcome their neighbours for the maiden OFC Nations Cup in the country. The Continental Championship doubles as 2018 FIFA World Cup Russia qualifying, where 6 of the 8 teams will advance to the next stage. The other prize on offer, and one far more difficult to attain, is the title of Continental Champions with a ticket to the FIFA Confederations Cup Russia 2017.
Such an achievement would comfortably be a new high watermark for Papua New Guinea and crown what is already a historic football year. Charged with achieving this unlikely target is an equally improbable figure in Flemming Seritslev. Hailing from Denmark, Seritslev is embarking on his maiden World Cup campaign as a head coach, a year shy of his 70th birthday. Seritslev arrived in PNG late last year and quickly determined that the Melanesian nation contained many rough-hewn diamonds amidst its plain population.
It's difficult for me to say because I don't know how Papua New Guinea has been playing before, but I have a certain structure that I want our team to have, and actually for this structure we have been working on this now in 4 trainings in 3 days, and I think we have achieved a bit during those 3 days here.
Almost the entire national team squad are currently participating in the OFC Champions League, featuring for either perennial champions Hikari United or new challengers Ley City Dwellers. That many of the players are spread across just 2 clubs is a blessing for Seritslev.
That's also why it's so good and so important that as well Hikari as Ley City Dwellers, they are participating in the OFC Champions League. I'm very much looking forward to follow their matches so that it's possible to compare their level with the other nations here in the region.
Papua New Guinea is Oceania's biggest nation, but it is also one of the world's most rurally based populations, and the Dane believes there is enormous scope for future growth. Seritslev was well known in Denmark, having featured as a gritty midfielder for many years at Vejle, one of the dominant clubs of the 1970s, where he lined up alongside the nation's original footballing star, Allan Simonsen. The genial Seritslev also has lengthy experience in various Denmark national team guises, including Olympic team coach, plus an 8-year stint as senior team assistant coach during the 1990s. And he says adapting to life in PNG was not difficult, having worked in nations as diverse as Iran, Nigeria and Armenia, aside from his native Denmark. PNG recently took to the field for the first time in 18 months when they visited neighboring Solomon Islands for a 2-match series. A win and a loss against the unpredictable Bonitos in Honiara suggests that the combination of Siritzlev's knowledgeable guiding hand combined with Melanesian flair could prove to be an intoxicating mix. Siritzlev will take the national team on a rare trip outside Oceania when they head to the Korean Republic for a 2-week camp. It is a trip which says much about Papua New Guinea's growing ambitions. Jeremy Mogi, National, EMTV Sports.
After match day 3 of the competition, Hikari United made a dream start to their 2016 OFC Champions League campaign, establishing themselves on top of Pool B. While in Pool A, Lay City Dwellers are on 3rd place with Auckland City on top of the pool.
Hikari United have made a bold statement about their intentions in the 2016 OFC Champions League, downing newcomers AS Lossie 5-1 on match day 2. While Team Wellington got a 2-0 victory to start their campaign. The 2010 champions Hikari United have struggled on the regional stage in recent years, but well and truly announced their return with a clinical performance against the New Caledonia debutants. Auckland City FC have got their OFC Champions League title defense off to a good start with a 4-0 victory over Solomon Warriors, while Amical have beaten Lay City Dwellers 3-0 to put themselves in the running.
He's worked into a shooting position and he scores. It's a wonderful goal.
Lay City Dwellers coach Peter Gunambas said it wasn't a poor performance for a debutant team at this level. The Vanuatu side have world-class professional players, and for his team to play such good football against them is quite something. In today's match, AS Magenta defeated AS Stefana 4-2 at QBE Stadium Oval, and Nadi FA beats Kiwi FC 4-3 with a goal deep inside injury time. Nadi FA Anis Cam scored all 4 goals to give Nadi the victory. Tomorrow's Pool A clash, Hikari United will take on Suva FA at 1 p.m. and that will be followed after by AS Lossie and Team Wellington at 3 p.m. Shane Soroya, National, EMTV Sports.
Trukai Sports continues after the break. Don't go away.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. Team PNG have had an unbelievable start to the 2016 Hancock Prospecting Australian Swimming Championships, currently being held at the South Australia Aquatic and Leisure Centre in Adelaide from the 7th to the 13th of April. Swimmers competing for Team PNG are Ryan Pinney, Sam Sedges, Ryan Maskelyne and Barbara Varley Skelton. PNG judo athlete Raymond Ovino recently took part in the Oceania Championship Senior 2016. Ovino lost in the semi-finals to a New Caledonian opponent. David Mai then lost again in the 3rd and 4th playoff to another New Caledonian opponent.
Ovino was placed in Pool D and was given an automatic entry to the semi-finals without fighting an opponent. Despite Raymond losing all his matches, Ovino is still qualified for the Rio Olympics in August 2016. His results at the recently ended Oceania Championships Senior 2016 are to improve his current world ranking and Olympic qualifying points. Ovino is currently ranked 115th in the world and is currently attending a training camp at the Australia Institute of Sports in Canberra. The training camp, which started yesterday, will end on Wednesday, with Ovino to return to Port Moresby on Thursday, the 14th of April 2016. Elijah Levet, National, EMTV Sports.
Round 7 of Super Rugby saw 3 straight losses by all New Zealand franchises. The most notable result of the weekend, the Queensland Reds' 1-point victory over the defending champions, the Highlanders.
Halfback Nick Frisby would have had to be the most outstanding player in the backline after setting up a try for Liam Gill to cross the try line in the opening minutes, and his brilliant support play behind Samuel Kurevi to put the home side in the lead 15-6, 30 minutes into the first half.
It's gone into the hands of Nambuli. Nambuli, wonder beat. He's got support. It is Frisby. It is a try, and it's a cracker.
By half-time, the Reds were just short of a bonus point in the lead 22-6. After the first two disallowed tries, the Reds were set for their first victory for the year. But a much more composed side came through just 20 minutes remaining to the final whistle, with All Blacks scrum half Aaron Smith showing his experience.
It had to happen on the weight of all that possession, and Aaron Smith is in the corner.
The Highlanders' loss sends a run of 5 straight wins for the champions and extends the losing streak in Queensland to 6 matches, as they have not won in Brisbane since April 2005.
28 points to 27.
The Highlanders have a bye next week in round 8, while the Reds travel to South Africa as they play the Bulls in Pretoria on Saturday. The Bulls have lost 1 game and won 3 this season, including a big 38-6 defeat over Southern Kings at the weekend. They remain in second place in the African Conference and will certainly be a tight tussle for the Reds next weekend. And that ends Trukai Sports. The weather details up next.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
Now looking at the weather forecast for tonight and tomorrow in the southern region. Fine in Port Moresby and Kerema, fine tonight and sunny tomorrow for Daru, and chances of few showers for Alotau and Popondetta. In the Momase region, chances of few showers for Lae City, few showers for Madang, and mostly fine in Wewak and Vanimore. In the New Guinea Islands region, chances of evening thunderstorms and mostly fine for Lorengau, few showers for Kavieng, few showers with chances of evening thunderstorms in Kokopo and Rabaul, evening thunderstorm, then few showers for Kimbe and showers with occasional thunderstorm in Buka. And lastly, in the Highlands region, all centres mostly fine, then morning fog. Now recapping our main stories for tonight. Soldiers on criminal charges detained at military cell, the handover and takeover of the Tourism Ministry and Nadzab Airport to see major transformation. And that's the news, sports and weather for tonight, Monday the 11th of April 2016. On behalf of the entire news team, I'm Lorraine Genia. Pleasant viewing. Good night.